Lindsay Martinez from Tourus. Lindsay, thanks so much for being my guest at Podcast Palooza.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to talk to you, Ronald. This is awesome.
This conversation I've been waiting to have. So today, let's just kind of talk about modern marketing and the multifamily real estate and how it's evolving from a static, form-based approach to a more dynamic, conversation-centered strategy.
Yep.
Which, I'm all about conversation.
Yep.
That's my favorite thing. And I think for me, this shift kind of aims to engage potential renters in more meaningful interactions. And you're hearing more and more about the experience, right? The customer experience, the prospect experience. And technology is evolving. And, you work on a prop tech division and like what this whole thing is. So let's talk about, in today's current climate, with many of these multifamily owners and operators focused on cutting costs, and how can multifamily marketers become more effective with less,
Cost
essentially?
cutting. Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing at kind of the corporate level are several initiatives that are very focused on feedback. And what we've been hearing recently is a big focus on resident feedback. Looking through Google reviews, understanding, maintenance requests, issues that residents bring through their portal, taking all this data and creating a picture of what it's like to live there as a resident. However, on the flip side, there's a lot to be learned from prospects.
Yep.
So thinking about creating what should be known as, and I think what's getting a little bit more traction, like a prospect feedback loop. Because, for example, something that you can learn are which methods are renters using to contact you. So, there's a lot of inquiries via mobile. Around 70% of property inquiries are via mobile.
But what's crazy is that on these inquiries coming in, we're not even responding to them.
Yeah.
On that feedback loop. So how do you have a loop of something if you're not even responding?
Well, actually, stepping back, let's say if we're responding or not, what are they asking? Do they have questions about fees? Do they have questions about amenities? And then moving to saying okay, well, what action are we taking? And how can we put a plan in place to assess everything end to end? And, there's ways on the data side like we're talking about. So, the number of questions that have been not answered that prospects have inquired about, the different channels that they're using to contact us. Is it a form on your website or is it a chatbot? But then there's a qualitative conversation. So kind of like a move-in interview. Understanding what those drivers were that drove them to your property, because that's a big question mark in marketing in general. It's really getting a grasp on what those drivers are, and there's a ton of information that we can learn from those conversations before somebody even moves in. So even before they tour, honestly.
Yeah. Let's talk about my favorite thing, chatbots.
Oh.
Let's talk about some chatbots. So, what are you seeing on that front?
So, there's kind of like I was saying, with chatbots, there's a wealth of untapped information. And if we look at e-commerce, for example, so stepping back and thinking about what e-commerce does, we are seeing a very intentional move to conversational marketing. Transactional form fills are not cutting it anymore.
Yeah.
They're not cutting it. That's why, not necessarily even just automated chat, but chat connecting you to an agent in an e-commerce situation, because on the end user side, the recipient, as in I'm the e-commerce company or I'm the property in this situation, I'm learning so much more about you through a conversation. I can understand more about your intentions, why you're interested in whatever I'm selling. But then on the inquirer side, and in our scenario, in our industry, the prospect, there's a massive opportunity for true lead qualification if we move away from the transaction.
Yep.
And right now we have, form fills that are very transactional. We have no context about what somebody's actually looking for. And then what we've done to improve that experience is rolled out chatbots. But a lot of them are very, very keen on getting you to a transaction of scheduling a tour.
Yes.
So we are losing an opportunity because users, renters, they do want to have conversations. They have questions. They have concerns.
And I think, like, I just learned, like, we just rolled out a chatbot where I work, and there's different languages that they didn't tell us, like, when we went in. So, like, we had turned on the professional language, right? Like, and that was, like, that professional tone. But then there's this enthusiastic.
Yeah.
That's
very conversational.
Right, which should be the first thing you should want to turn on, especially knowing that that's what prospects are wanting, right? Like, they don't want to be interrogated. And that's what that form feels like, because I know no one's going to do anything with this form that I fill out.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're a big fan of conversations, just like me. Can you explain why that is? Is it the data behind it, or is it something else?
Well, I think that's kind of hit the nail on the head. And I think something really important to call out is that if we step back and we say, all right, I'm not going to think about my technology or about the industry. I'm going to think about humans right now. When is the last time that you texted somebody in an ongoing conversation? Texted a friend or a loved one, like an hour ago?
Yeah,
maybe
like
20
right
minutes?
before we came on here ago, right? We had to keep that going.
Right, because that's how relationships are being built more and more, and that's how they're being maintained. Like, if I wasn't able to text my friends who live in other cities, how am I going to maintain that relationship? And that's just the era that we're in. So that is how prospects are expecting to build relationship, and that builds trust just naturally. It's totally seamless in the trust building.
And I think, like, it's important too that when chatbots first came on the scene, there's these big long messages, right? When you're talking about texting my friends, I'm not texting a book.
Right.
I'm shorthanding, like, here we go here, you know, to keep it brief, because my attention span just isn't there.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's time that in multifamily marketing, we have to catch up to that. You know, we have to start getting to where people are wanting and how they want their information.
And something that I think that something I think that's really interesting here is kind of like the short tidbits. It's like instant gratification. I'm getting my response. And something that we're seeing at Tourus is, I think it's absolutely fascinating. So we're really focused as an industry, top of funnel. Get somebody into schedule, get somebody into schedule. We're seeing prospects post-tour message around 32% more. They're initiating conversations. They have questions. They want to know the answers to them. And something that we can learn from this, thinking about the idea of like a feedback loop and how we can take action on it, is what are the most consistent questions? How can we bring transparency forward? How can we say, you know, our digital presence is number one, transparent, because we want to bring in the right leads that our building's a great fit for.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to have like surprises around fees when they're applying, because that's actually an unqualified lead. So we're kind of moving to a different kind of, like we were saying before, this quantity versus quality. We're moving to a very big shift toward quality.
Right, and I think we're also making a shift finally to a personalization. And I think there's a lot of fear around these chatbots and this AI technology in that aspect, right? Like, it's going to replace it. It's very transactional. How do you help people understand that we have to make this a personalized experience for someone?
Yeah. You know, there's so much talk about personalization, and I think it's because we haven't quite put our finger on it. Because true personalization, it takes troves of data. It takes a place to store it. It takes someone to analyze it or a tool to analyze it. And then you get to content that needs to be curated for exactly each person. But what we can do there is really think about segmentation.
Yep.
So even though each individual is going to be unique and each renter is unique and their preferences are different, they may be moving from different places, there's going to be consistent patterns. Like, for example, you know, I guess I would go back to the fee, let's say the fee question, or specials. You know, what are your specials, what are your specials, what are your specials? How can we bring that to the front of their experience so that we know, okay, we have a segment of 50% of our renters are really interested in specials and have concerns around the fees. Let's be very upfront with this information to make sure that we're bringing the right people in. So again, it goes back to understanding kind of where the groups of your prospects fall into, what they're interested in. And, I don't want to say like where they're coming from necessarily, but yeah.
So I think of two things on this. So I think of like Google now, right? Google knows everything. When you're like on your search, you can go to a website and then you can go back and it was like, would you like to resume your journey?
Yeah.
Wild. Like, we know. You remember back in the day when we had to ask everyone, how did you hear about us? What marketing channel? We don't have to do that anymore because technology has evolved and we can tell you your first point of contact, your second point of contact, your third point, And I told you, like, doing the prep work for this, I think the chatbot for personalization should have, like, a BuzzFeed quiz on, like, here's the different things, like, what pair of shoes would you pick? And, which dinner and then it could make a recommendation on, here's the community and my portfolio that would work best for you, which leads into branding.
Yes, absolutely.
Conversation should lead into branding. A good community should have a strong brand. So what are your thoughts on branding?
I mean, when you were saying like, okay, this is the touch point, it speaks directly to that because we're seeing a massive shift. Like, again, let's put a pin in the multifamily industry for a second and think about e-commerce or, even beyond that. Right now, we still have such a focus on reporting on first touch attribution, second touch, figuring out your cost pers. And the story is a little bit bigger than that. And I think very critical marketers are becoming really savvy about that because it's less about targeting your marketing for conversion and thinking about your marketing in terms of being, very focused to stay top of mind. Getting those prospects, getting in front of them before they're even going to move. So for example, in New York, on the PATH train, there's a property, they've taken over all of the marketing on the PATH train. You've seen some properties even, on the TVs on airlines. So it's like, where are people often alone, very focused, and you're just kind of like, a little bird in their ears sometimes. And then when you get to the point of conversion, you are top of mind.
Yeah.
You are getting them before that they're even looking, and it makes you wonder: is first and last? I don't want to get in trouble, but is first and last touch attribution, is that what we should be measuring, or is it different cohorts of initiatives that are a mix of digital, physical, being where your renters are? But kind of going back, where are the renters?
Right.
Understanding from the prospect feedback loop. What drove you to rent? What did you love about this property? Where did you hear about us? Was it a billboard? So it kind of is cyclical, and I think that we're seeing a pretty big shift in alignment with how other companies are marketing and presenting themselves. It's like, be everywhere.
Yeah, so we're about out of time, Lindsay. I know that went so quickly. If people wanted to make a conversation with you, where would they find you?
You can email me directly, Lindsay, Lindsay, at Tourus, Tourus.io. On LinkedIn, Lindsay Martinez, or our website, Tourus.io.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
I kind of just really quickly want to touch on branding and marketing again. I think that there's just a massive opportunity to look at iterational marketing. What is not working? So thinking about your initiatives as a group, let's say you have, 5 digital, you have your SEO, you have some, physical marketing. Every month, take one away, measured against the previous year. Next month, add that back, take another away. Then you're going to see an incremental change over time and a better understanding on an ongoing basis of what's working and what's not, and where the levers are that you can pull, because it's less about the dollars and more about the conversions that are coming with that.
Perfect. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining this special
Ronald.
episode of Rooms with Ronald, live from Podcast Palooza at the Attica Rooftop Bar at Apartmentalize in Philadelphia. Until next time, everyone, happy leasing.